Welcome back, everyone, to the Jonsie Burrows. Here, we'll dig deep into ruin in search of important things we all might have missed that can gather together to later prove with a theory that's valid. If you're new here, hello, I'm Jonsie, and we're continuing to burrow down into the hidden depths of ruin. Before we see where Cassie landed from part 3, let us rewind a bit as there are some things I missed and stuff I forgot to mention. First, I had changed my mind about who exactly is putting the arrows and cutouts for Cassie to follow in the Pizzaplex. In part 2, I mentioned that Glitchtrap was doing that as I connected the Helpy cutout to his current mask of Helpy. However, going through the daycare sequence again made me switch back to Vanny. My reasoning for her is that there are way too many conveniently placed arrows in that daycare for it to be Glitchtrap's doing. More than that, there are many drawings of the arrows that Cassie can see in the real world with no type of digital distortions. But what sealed the deal for me were the drawings of the daycare attendant. I've seen 3 drawings of him, all drawn with colored lines representing both sides of the daycare attendant's persona. The first 2 you run into depict the attendant with a smile, but it's the last one that hammered it home that it's Vanny. The final drawing, placed in the section you go through to finally reboot him, depicts the daycare attendant with Moon being angry and Sun being sad with a frown, with each half shown on the same face. Right next to it is a drawing of Arrow colored in the same color as Sun's sad face. It's really the cherry on top for the evidence that the entire Reboot the Daycare Attendant was just a setup by the villains. For the things I miss, one is that those camera stations that you can only look at through the mask are covered in those purple lines. Is it a hint at something? I don't know, but keep that in mind. The other is that I got a look at the theater room with the game unlit. Basically, it means that all the in-game lighting to make an area dark or light is off. And oh joy, look what I found on the big screen. The graffiti on the screen actually does have color. The pizza is yellow, and Jeremy's name is blue, tying it back to Vanny and her spray cans in the Monty Golf. Also, there is a purple graffiti word on the left side of the screen, but I believe it's not Vanny's, as the style is too different from what we saw of hers in both the base game and the DLC. Though I'm curious as to what it says. If any of you know, comment down below. Alright, back to our unregularly scheduled series.
Last we saw of Cassie, she had climbed into the belly of the mechanical beast and trapped herself. But with some advice from Helpy,
it is all in your head. Take the mask off and take a look.
Cassie found herself in another vent, where she hoped that it didn't fall. It did. Down a metal tube she fell, and landed on the Gator gondola ride, where she got to see the Fazbear Entertainment-approved backstory of Monty.
I guess this is as good of a time as any to finally talk about Montgomery Gator. I've kind of been skipping over talking about him, huh? It's not that I didn't want to talk about him, it's just by the time I could, I was tired or didn't have enough space, or both. First, of his name and animatronic species in the franchise. I was somewhere from okay to looking forward to seeing him in Security Breach and then again in Ruin. To me, this character is the only one I've seen from this franchise that's being crapped on both in-game and out-of-universe, and it's just plain weird. Like, out of universe, I get it. He, presumably, killed Glamrock Bonnie, whose many fans magically appeared one day after Security Breach's release and labeled him as guilty, with most fans of the franchise following their judgment. Of course, with the release of Ruin, he's now the object of ridicule for his poor representation in the DLC, with him self-sabotaging himself and acting like a dog. But it's the in-game half that's got me confused and weirded out by this character. Almost none besides Glamrock Chica has been done as dirty as him in this entire franchise. He's been torn in half, had his hand stolen, been reduced to an attack dog that could no longer mumble the slightest hints of words or show signs of greater intelligence, and finally electrocuted. Like I'm asking myself, what exactly did this guy do to get handed such a bad deal like that? Is it simply bad luck or just deserve? For the limited time we see him in Security Breach, he didn't seem all that different from the other Glamrocks, besides being angry enough to trash his own room and smashing the turrets in his boss fight. Other than that, he's remarkably calm? Put together? Sorry, I can't think of a word for it. But when he talks, he doesn't sound angry, or even show that much frustration or rage compared to Roxy. He roars and makes gator noises, but does that count as angry or frustrated? And even when he does rages out and break stuff, it's selective, infrequent, and happens in isolation in places he usually hangs out in. Far away enough from the staff bots, people, and the other animatronics. Even with Gregory up in the catwalks, he roars, jumps off the gondola, and instead of immediately charging at Gregory to attack him, he calmly turns to break a turret, calmly turns to Gregory and gives him a catchphrase and starts walking towards him. It's like he knows he's on a rage timer, and instead of unleashing it on things that can be perceived as living, he instead takes it out on the inanimate objects around him and completely isolate himself so he doesn't hurt anyone. That is until he is ordered to look for a little guy. Although some would say he was always an angry rage machine, and most wouldn't disagree with that assessment is a blatantly false one. The Tales book, and even Security Breach itself, tells us that he wasn't like this before, and that this is vastly out of character for him, that the virus made him like this. This goes for all the Glamrocks too, except maybe Freddy. What we see in the base game and the DLC are exaggerated versions of their personalities. And that's a shame too, as those brief scenes and voice lines we get from Monty in the game make him sound like a cool character and antagonist who desperately needed some more time to shine. But you can say that about a lot of characters and things in Security Breach. Furthermore, it's hard to tell what's the effect of the virus and what's not sometimes with the Glamrocks. I really wish we had like a cutscene when we first booted up Security Breach to show us what the Glamrocks were like before the virus. If you're wondering why I'm not talking about the situation involving him and Bonnie, then I'll tell you right now that I'm saving that discussion for when we get to Bonnie Bowl. I got some thoughts about it, but I just wanted to highlight Monty's character and personality first. Or rather, what's left of it before ruin. Because wow, it's like seeing the after effects of mental deterioration. It's like the virus took the last shred of his sanity, and now he's attacking everything. Yet curiously, we still don't see him confront or attack the other animatronics in the Pizzaplex. Not even signs of that happening. But the most interesting thing about him in this DLC comes from his design. I can tell you for a fact that Monty has been repaired since Security Breach. Well, when I say repair, I actually mean fixed somewhat. I can even tell you why and by whom. By now, you should be aware of the fact that Vanny and Glitchtrap are still here in the Pizzaplex, and that the daycare attendant is connected to both. Vanny has repaired Monty to fulfill the role that Moon was supposed to have as the attack dog of the Pizzaplex. How do I know that it's Vanny? Vanny is the only one in the Pizzaplex with a physical body, and the means to do so with spare endo parts and circuit boards from the arcade machines. And already we've seen evidence of her tampering with the staff bots and the wind-up Music Man. Why Monty? Monty still has eyes, or maybe an eye. Can he see in both? Unlike Roxy, and doesn't need to be deactivated for the security nodes. His disability becomes his greatest strength, as unlike Chica and Prototype Freddy, he doesn't require more power to stay on. And thanks to his small form, he can move easily through the ruined Pizzaplex by being able to squeeze through small holes and go through pipes. How do I know that he's replacing Moon specifically? Moon used to be Vanny's right-hand man to do anything she wanted, but right now, he's hampered by his broken light sensor, and is now stuck constantly and is now stuck constantly switching between sun when light is shining on his face. Monty may not have legs, but he makes up for it by his mobile and small form. Why do I think he's repaired and not redesigned? If you looked at the differences between his shattered form and his ruined form, you'll notice that his shattered form has a dislocated jaw and multiple wires coming from his missing bottom half. Now, some of the differences could be filed away as Monty losing those things as he crawls, falls, and bumps against stuff around the Pizzaplex. However, his dislocated jaw should either have been the same as it was in Security Breach, or even more dislocated or torn off completely. Those wires coming from him could have been unplugged as he crawled around, but they could have just as easily gotten tangled up in something and got him stuck somewhere. So Vanny saw an opportunity and made a temporary fix until the daycare attendant problem was resolved. A dislocated jaw was repaired. Unnecessary wires were unplugged. His spine became a tail, and his endo frame gets supported by bronze-colored metal to help his new way of moving through the Pizzaplex. But that's it for Montgomery Gator. For now, we'll talk more about him in Bonnie Bowl. Back to Cassie.
After Cassie got the gist of Monty's Fazbear Entertainment approved past, she realized there was no more track for the gondolas to take. And so with quick thinking and reaction, she jumps off the ride and lands on the catwalks of Monty Golf, barely keeping herself from falling over the edge of it to her death. A moment later, Grimmick speaks up from her Roxy-talkie saying,
Cassie, where are you?
You know, I didn't catch on to the fact that both Glitchtrap and the Mimic lost sight of Cassie in that moment as she fell down into the gondolas. That tells us that the AR inhibitors blocked Cassie's location from them, and tells us that the security mask acts as a GPS tracker. I'll talk more about the AR inhibitors in the next video. Aside from more evidence that the mask is here to secure Cassie, it gives us another clear reason as to why they gave it to her. Since most of the cameras are down the Pizzaplex, the tracker helps Glitchtrap and the Mimic know where she is at all times. But even more important than that is the fact that whatever the exact plan the villains had for Cassie was, they didn't account for the event falling into an active AR inhibitor zone. But they did want Cassie to go to Monty Golf Catwalks, as there are security nodes there. So I'm guessing that the vent, if it didn't fall, would have led Cassie to another safer way to get onto the catwalks. Wow, the villain's plan here only worked here thanks to Cassie's quick thinking and adequate athleticism.
After Cassie updated Grimmick on her situation, Grimmick told her how to redirect the gondolas to the maintenance room from what he'd seen of the schematics.
I have some thoughts on this, but it doesn't relate to anything in this chapter, so I'll talk more about it when we reach the Mimic under the Pizzaplex.
More security nodes to deactivate, but new ways to get to them is what Cassie goes about doing after her chat with Grimmick. But what's strange to her is the fact that she could walk on platforms that only appear in the AR world and not in the real world. Deep down, she knows that if she takes off the mask while she's on the AR platforms, she will fall.
Alright, time to tackle this quirky problem that's currently the bane of all theories and facts. How in the world is Cassie doing all this? Walking through digital objects, interacting with them, and even seeing digital distortions can all be excused as the effect of Cassie having an occipital transponder implanted in her head. However, that explanation doesn't fly with the fact that she's walking on digital objects in mid-air and can teleport through digital gates. When I first saw Cassie doing that in the AR world in Monty Golf Catwalks, I instantly thought that her body must be moving differently in the real world than what she believes she's doing in the AR world. Like maybe she sees herself casually walking across a mid-air digital platform, while in reality, she's doing some Ninja Warrior stuff on the catwalks. Except two things contradict that. Cassie never mentions being even remotely out of breath whenever she goes across a digital platform, and her implant only affects her vision, not her body. The security mask, however, does affect her body, but only insofar as it concerns taking the mask off from what we're shown. It doesn't even explain the teleporting that Cassie does from time to time in the DLC. Let's take the best example of what I mean. It's also in Monty Golf Catwalks. There is a digital gate that takes Cassie directly to Monty's stage, where she can get the Pat Pat, aka Wet Floorbot. Maybe that doesn't count for you. It's sort of off the beaten path, and the only reason you go there is for the Easter egg in Pat Pat. Okay then, the second best. The very first one you go through in the DLC. Before you go through that digital gate, you can see before it appears in front of you that there is nothing ahead of you that you can walk on to get to your next destination. You go through it, and now you're closer to that destination, but you're not quite there. You're off to the side from where you're facing from that last portal. You take another portal, and you're finally there with Cassie being confused as to how she's doing this, and feeling sick from it, which is most likely from the visual of going through the gate. She would have said she was exhausted if she was really moving like a ninja while she was in AR. So is there any answer we can get from the DLC that can explain this? Yes. Yes, there is. In fact, Helpy tells us exactly how Cassie's doing this, quite plainly and without fanfare. Or should I say, that Glitch Trap tells us. With orange eyes and purple veins, Helpy gives the answers.
There is nothing to worry about. Everything appears to be perfectly normal. You must be seeing things. It is all in your head. Take the mask off and take a look. With your own 2 feet, silly. If you're tired, why not take a break?
Wait, am I truly saying that everything we and Cassie see after putting on the mask for the first time, from beginning to end, is all made up? No. I'm saying that almost everything that Cassie sees after putting on the mask should be called into questioning and labeled as sus. I know that you probably hate that, and I don't particularly like it either when a story uses that as a plot device. However, in this instance, Steel Wool did it the right way, and they were really sneaky about it too. But there are points in the DLC that we can prove without a doubt that some things are what they appear to be. And it has to do with the AR inhibitors. You see, this slipped by me before, but I caught it while typing this out while watching Cassie's first ride on the gondolas and the ensuing conversation with Grimmick. Those AR inhibitors not only prevent Cassie from putting on the mask, but they completely cut her off from the network. That in turn means she can't see any digital distortions while the inhibitors are activated, which also means that what she sees in those moments are in fact real and can be trusted as happening. But that also means that when the AR inhibitors are off or nowhere to be found nearby, Glitch Trap manipulates Cassie's vision so she can stay the course. But Cassie can only possibly go somewhere if there is a physical way for her to get there in the real world, or the way that prevents her from going there doesn't exist. The best 2 examples of what I mean, coincidentally, happen near Superstar Daycare. First, the Houdini TV that Cassie jumps through to get into the Superstar Daycare doesn't exist at all. Every single object that you can go through in the DLC has one single important thing in common. They are stationary objects that don't move. They are objects that don't affect or interact with their surroundings to not break the illusion. After all, it's easy to break the immersion in a video game when objects are clearly clipping through things. Second, the giant endo you climb into in Fazbear Theater is actually a passage to a vent. When you take off the mask after Glitch Trap's advice, you'll see that you're in a vent when just a moment ago you were in the theater. To explain how this happens, you'll have to look behind the path where the trash bags are in the progression path. Go back a bit, and you'll see that the vent goes up steeply. I could bet you that in the real world, there is a vent behind that projector screen, and that Cassie fell down in it when in the AR world, she fell down the giant Endo's throat. But what about the digital gates? She's teleporting. That's actually not happening. What's happening is that her vision goes white and distorts before showing her her new location. Furthermore, Cassie never stops moving when she is going through those gates. It only stops when her vision returns. If it really was teleporting, then Cassie would just appear at her chosen destination instead of taking a side path and then taking another digital gate just to get to her destination, like in the case of the very first digital gate we go through. Cassie can't physically take off the security mask if Glitchtrap doesn't want her to. He can also manipulate what she sees. If Cassie were to keep walking/running by using her own 2 feet, then Glitchtrap needs to simply change the direction or the way she sees that direction to get her to their objective. Remember, Cassie is high above Monty on the catwalks. The digital gates only appear in this area and Phasor Blast. One slip, one single misstep, and it's game over for Cassie and starting from scratch for the villains. It's better to be careful and make sure she can make it across the catwalks. Alright, where were we? Oh yeah, Cassie and the security nodes.
As Cassie made her way across the slippery catwalks, she made sure to grab the AR Sun Pinata collectible and continue onward. After deactivating a child node, Cassie is briefly startled by Monty, speedily crawling across the catwalks away from her. It looks like Monty is more nimble than he seems to get all the way up here with no legs.
He sure seems like a useful animatronic, able to move freely around the Pizzaplex. He can be a big help to someone.
She comes across what appears to be some kind of digital gate, and with some egging on from Grimmick,
Well, what are you waiting for?
Cassie goes through it and appears somewhere different, much to her confusion and sickness. But carrying on, a comic drawing from Gregory is collected. More digital gates are gone through, including one hiding a Pat-Pat and Monty's legs, and more nodes. But it all comes to an end when she takes a digital gate to a long, straight catwalk where Mixes appears at the end of it. But before he could get too close, Helpy and Grimmick take care of him, though it does sound to be in pain before it disappears.
Not much to say here that I haven't already said before, but that doesn't mean I have nothing to say about this area. It's very interesting. The same purple energy that goes directly into the Princess Quest 3 arcade machine appears in this place too. And if that is the exact same energy, where is this energy coming from?
After that closed call, Cassie takes another digital gate and deactivates the final child node and the security node, opening the doors to the maintenance room. Another conduit puzzle, which I guess is also the track controller? And Cassie gets a free ride to the maintenance room. Once there, Grimmick tells her she's getting closer, and she rightfully questions how he knows that, but only gets a explain it when she gets there. Before Grimmick tells her that thing is here again and he's gotta hide and for her to save him. So her quest to save the prince continues, but not before she picks up an AR Foxy plush with its description reading, "That log ride was so much fun."
That's it for now, but like always, there is so much more to find in the ruins of the Pizzaplex. We just need to take a more closer look.